Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I'm your host, Big Ken. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a streaming service, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You'll be notified whenever I drop any new content. Welcome. Thanks for being here. How is everyone doing? Just got home, EC3 Con at the Mohegan Sun Casino. I talked about it on Thursday's episode. It was where I was going to be all weekend, and what a weekend. And because I was at a casino all weekend, this episode is simply called Jackpot. Now, in all honesty, this is my fourth time doing this show. And I always say, know the show. I will say, I don't know if Mohegan Sun was pumping something into the air over the weekend to get people to spend money. But this was not like any other show I've done up there at the casino, this show. On Saturday, the foot traffic was just constant, all day, constant. The room was packed and people were buying. People were spending money. And if you think about it, being at a casino, and I know this was kind of a good weekend to have the show. They had a number of different things going on. I know I'm usually pretty good about getting a room at Mohegan when we have the shows up there. And I signed up for this show, I think back in November. And even at that time, I could not get a room. I mean, I probably could have gotten a room, but they were just outrageously priced. And there was just so much going on. They had comedians, they had this cannabis thing going on, they had a bridal expo going on. And there was a number of other things going on, people running around there. So I know the hotel was packed all weekend, but it just felt like everybody coming in there were card people or Pokemon people. I had the single biggest day on Saturday at this show that I've had since the National last year in Chicago. Unbelievable the amount of sales I did on Saturday. And I have to say, I only sold one card that was over 2K. Everything else I sold was from dollar boxes up to $300. It was just in that price range. There was nothing, I don't think I had any slabbed card or even anything in a one touch that I sold that was over $300. So it just gives you the idea of what kind of inventory people were buying and being able to sell all that amount of inventory to do as well as I did. I thought I knew the show. This was not the show that I knew. I sold out football and Bowman U basketball. I had two good size, display cases, and one case had all football and some hockey in it, and the other case had the Bowman U basketball and some pop culture stuff in there. And sold out on Saturday. I sold out all the football and almost all the Bowman U stuff. Probably maybe had four one touch. I probably started out with about 16, 18 things in one touches. I had about four left at the end of the day on Saturday. And by Sunday, they were gone. I had nothing left of the Bowman U stuff. And, I ended up bringing inventory back on Sunday. I actually left. I left a busy show on Saturday. I mean, that show was still busy on Saturday. And late in the day on Saturday, somebody came around, bought two of my discount boxes, the whole box. We went through, we negotiated, came up with a price, bought two of those boxes. I had nothing left, no football, nothing. Nobody was really buying pop culture. Didn't sell one hockey card. Although I talked to two other dealers that were selling hockey, they said they were killing it. I don't know. I mean, I only had a handful of hockey cards in my case, but I didn't sell any hockey cards. So I knew, like, at this time by 5 o'clock on Saturday, this is what people were buying. And I'm thinking in my mind, Like, what do I have at home? I mean, I have to be back here again tomorrow. What am I bringing? I actually left that show is till 6. I left just before 5 on Saturday to come home to go through boxes here in the office to find inventory to bring back. I mean, I ended up bringing back some stuff that I earmarked to go to PSA that I was going to send out to grading some football that I said, okay, let me just grab these, throw them in some one touches, and I'm gonna bring them up and drop them in the case on Sunday. It just at this point it just made sense to move some of those cards. And this was after Friday afternoon, which I knew was coming because I looked up online to PSA that I had one of my orders for 116 cards that was being returned, and I thought when they sent me the thing said the grades were ready, I'm like, I'm not even going to get these cards till Monday, so I'm not going to worry about it. Then I went back on Thursday and I looked because it shipped Thursday and it said you'll have this tomorrow, and I said, oh, well, let's see what happens. And Friday afternoon, sure enough, this showed up. So now I've got 116 graded cards fresh back from PSA. Rip open the boxes. I'm going through them. I'm separating out cards I'm going to hold, football cards I'm just going to hold, women's soccer cards that some are for my PC and some are going also a hold for the summer for the national and baseball cards, which I started going through. I mean, I got great grades on these baseball cards, and they're from 2020, 21, 22. The Anthony Volpes, the Bobby Witt Juniors, a whole bunch of these guys that I think are going to do just fine. But right now, I just think that the prices are down. As like I didn't want to rush these things off to the first show and lose out on them. I think I'm going to hold these for at least another month or just watch the prices to see where they're going and what makes the most sense to put those out. So now I've got a lot of cards I'm going through saying, okay, this can't go, that can't go, this can't go. And I'm doing this on Friday. And now I've got all these stuff. I'm like, oh, I mean, I've got more than enough. I'm thinking to myself, more than enough inventory. Like I was almost I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I'm going to sell all this stuff. And in fact, on Friday, as I'm doing this, I'm like, I'm already golden for next week, right? Because I not only do I have this show this weekend, but I'm already looking to next weekend to the Card Vault show that I have next weekend at Foxwood. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm golden. Like I'm not going to have to do much work this week. Did all the work this week before this show. I'll leave everything boxed up and I just bring it, the following weekend to Foxwood. I had no idea I was going to go up there Saturday and just sell out a whole case out there, a showcase out there. It was just incredible, the sales that I had on Saturday. So now where I thought I was golden, now I'm going to spend the week scrambling, try to figure out what inventory I'm going to be putting in my cases next week, and even the boxes. I mean, like, my dollar boxes got torn through. I sold a couple boxes, like full boxes. Guys just came in and bought full boxes of my stuff. So, and I want to say too, because a lot of people ask me as soon as I say, "Wow, I had a great day. I sold all these cards." Everybody, the first thing they say is repackers. Oh, it was the repackers. No, I didn't even see one repacker. If they were there on Saturday or Sunday, I did not see them. They did not come to my table. So this was not somebody coming in, one person coming in and buying 30 or 40 slabs. This was individually people just buying one or two. I think the most I sold to any one person was some cards out of the discount and two cards out of my case, whether it be a graded or a one touched card out of my case. But that was it. So it was really a lot of single sales, not any bulk sales that I did besides selling my my boxes that were full of cards. People were buying, money was being spent, but I know from talking to people, a lot of people, and this is something. I mean, I don't think it's new because I talk to a lot of people, who do this. I'm always different. I always like to have money in my pocket, but there's a lot of people that are just showing up to the show with no money, just grabbing some cards and saying, "Yeah, I'm going to a card show." They walk around and they start selling their cards and take the cash. I know the cash is just rolling around the room, just changing hands. They're selling their cards, they're taking the cash and they're going shopping. I mean, I had a couple kids that came up And, one of the cards that I got back from PSA was a Jerry Rice Downtown, and it was, PSA 10. It came back a PSA 10, and, his buddy was saying to him, "There you go, you finally found these." Like, "I bought the Kaboom, and you buy the Downtown." And he's like, "You think?" And he's like, "Dude, all the money you made today?" And that's how I started talking to these guys. And he's like, "Yeah, probably." I mean, he just pulled out I don't know what they were selling, what they came in selling, but they pulled out a bankroll. Kid pulled out a bankroll, young kid too. Boom, peeled off, the money and said, "Yeah, I'll take it." And I think being able to shop like that, even at their ages, right? And I say their ages, where they maybe 16, 15, 16, 17, maybe something like that too. But I mean, it's good for the hobby. It's good for the room. And it's good both ways. It's good for them. Here, they're entrepreneurs, right? They're bringing cards in. I don't know where they came from, what they're into them for, but they're coming in. They're moving the cards in the room. They're taking the cash and they're putting the cash back into the room somewhere else. So it's almost like a win-win rolling around the room. So um, definitely a good weekend. And one thing, you hear people say all the time, about this show, too much Pokemon. There's too much Pokemon there. Now I was in the front row. I was all the way down. I was try to set the stage where I am. So if you came into the room, there were tables against the wall. You're looking at the whole room with tables in front of you. If you took a right, I was going down towards where a lot of the voice the voiceover actors are there. They're doing their autographing. There was a lot of Pokemon down that end. I was that end. I was the last sports card table before about 4 or 5 tables to the end of the row, and it was all Pokemon stuff. And I can say that area was packed. That area, I mean, they held their own over there. The Pokemon people, they really held their own down there. I know I'd been at this show before, and I've seen the Pokemon cards and stuff like that, but you know what? I never really noticed. I never really was sitting back and saying, "Wow, like there is a huge market for this stuff." And a couple people were standing there and they were looking like we were talking, we're doing sports cards and they're looking down and some of the people were saying, "Man, maybe I should get into Pokemon." Like, look at all these people down there. And at times they were more crowded down there than the sports cards were up here, at times. So yeah, it was definitely they were definitely holding their own there. Um and you know what? I mean, that people complain about Pokemon being there, but look, if there's people selling Pokemon at the table, it's less competition for me, right? Every table that's got Pokemon there is less competition, less people that I'm competing with to sell my cards. And I think, and I want to say this, and I want to, because I think this is really important to say, is that I always pride myself on the cards that I put in my case. Like, I try not to have the same card that everybody else has in their case, and I've talked about this, where somebody comes in and says, "Oh, you've got, this Mahomes, whatever." And then they're going to go find that card around the room. And if they want to buy it, they're going to find whoever's going to sell them the cheapest. Now, I'm not saying I'm the only guy in the room with certain cards, but when I go out and I look for cards, I look for the cool factor in the cards too. And I'll just give you, a for instance, like, everybody's talking about like a silver prism, but like a blue cracked ice for like an Anthony Richardson, a nice color match, something like that. I just think you're not going to see that at every table. You're going to see, a lot of these retail cards that, are being pulled out, and you see, I saw a ton of them, but then all of a sudden I've got cards, where people are coming up and they're like, "Oh," and I see them stopping and they're looking and they're pulling out, "How much for this? How much for that? Can I see this card? Can I see that card?" And I know that they haven't seen these cards anywhere else in the room, that I had, some of these, and some of them were from the Don Russ set, just kind of some cool, these purple stat lines numbered to 500, and an optic, an optic hollow card, just things like that that people are like they're getting excited about. And they're not overly expensive. I mean, if you look them up, I mean, a lot of those cards are like 60 bucks, 50 bucks for they're not like two, three, $400 cards, right? But they're just different. They just look different. And I think that's what people are looking for at the show. And I think having that mentality for me is really what pays off on a day on a weekend like this, at a show like this, where everybody coming in, we know everybody's looking for Stroud and Richardson, and then there's, maybe a couple Will Levis people and stuff like that. But everybody's kind of looking for the same thing. So if we're all sitting there with the base rookies or the stuff that's coming out of retail that you're pulling out of blasters, and I'm not even saying that they're abundant, because they're not, because I've opened lots of blasters, and you're not pulling them out of every blaster, but still, just having something a little bit different, I think, is really important. And it makes a big difference when people are shopping and looking around, because then they see the card, they say, okay, now I haven't seen this card in the room. Maybe that's the card I want, because it may be an easier flip, or an easier, more of a liquid card to move it after I get it somewhere else. So I think that's pretty important. Every dealer I talked to at this show, on both sides, sports cards and Pokemon, all said it was an amazing show. Not one person, that was set up there said to me, "Oh, it was terrible. I had a terrible show." It was every single person I asked or talked to, and it was just, they said they just had a great show. It was definitely, a nice morale boost, a nice hobby morale boost, because a lot of times, if you show up and the show is slow and people aren't buying, it just puts that mood in the room, and people are complaining and things like that. Saw none of that this weekend. People were excited. They're smiling, talking about sales, and talking about buying a ton of stuff, talking about turning over their inventory, which I did, which is important for me. It's important that, as a dealer, that if you're setting up at a lot of the same shows, to have different stuff to be put in your case all the time. I don't want somebody to come and look in and say, "Oh yeah, I know this guy because he always has these same cards in his case all the time." Right? I don't want to be that guy. Shout out to Scott, Sky Up Signings, for putting all the work into this show, keeping it growing, getting bigger and better each time. Definitely, definitely a good show. It was a great show, and I think it's just going to continue to get even bigger and bigger. Um, as for me, even though I was in the front row, it wasn't a really good buying spot for me, just because where I was positioned in the front row, but that's okay. Right? I mean, you know, I didn't get many opportunities, but the opportunities I did get, I capitalized on when I could. Funny story. Later in the day on Saturday, I'm stressing a little. I mean, I've sold all my inventory. In my mind, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to be picking up at home to bring back on Sunday. Um, and a guy walks up. He's going through my dollar boxes, and he says, "Are you buying or trading?" And I said, "Yeah, let me see what you got." So he takes his backpack, he unzips the backpack, and he just turns it over on he goes, "Can I drop, put the cards out on my display case?" I'm like, "Yeah." He just drops them on there. A whole bunch of cards come tumbling out, bouncing around, all graded slabs, no sleeves on them, nothing on them, just the slabs themselves. And I'm looking, I'm like, "Oh my god, that looks like an '86 Jordan rookie right there." And I see PSA 9, and I reach in the file and I pull it out, and I'm like, "Is this for real?" I'm like, "Did you just dump this stuff on my thing and this card right here?" And he's like, "Oh yeah." And I'm like, "Is this like?" I was dumbfounded. I'm like, "Who treats a card like this?" I says to the guy, "You can't treat your cards like this." I went and I grabbed some sleeves, and I started sleeving up the guys. He's standing there looking at me. I'm like, I mean, you're gonna ruin these cards. You gotta sleeve these cards up." I say, "You gotta take care of these cards." I went through his cards. They were just huge cards, huge cards. Um, I say to myself, of course, finally a buying opportunity comes. And these are definitely not the cards that I'm looking to buy, that I'm buying to flip, to flip out of. A number of people I knew who may be interested in these cards. I sent him to see some people. He talked to some people, and he ended up making a few deals in there, which is good. I'm glad that I'm glad he was able to make a deal in there. It was just not a lane I was looking to get into. Uh, Speaking of buying, my guy Neil from New Hampshire, he shows up with the Trinity Rodman rookie blue auto raw. And he says, "Yeah, I'm looking to trade that." I'm like, "Okay, well, what are you trading?" I mean, just look in my case. He said, "Nah, not something here." He said, "I'm gonna go look for some vintage." And that was one thing about the show. There wasn't a lot of vintage at the show. And I'm telling him, "Look, there's no vintage here. Don't even go looking." I start throwing him solid offers at the card. I'm like, "Come on, just sell me the card." At the end of at the end, he walked out. He said, "No, let me walk around." He walked around. He came back. He just wasn't ready to sell the card. Let me tell you, if he was ready to sell it, I'd be holding that card up to you right now. He just wasn't ready to sell it, but I'm holding him to it because he told me, he promised me, give me first shot at that card. Uh, and any of those, Rodman, those blues, the purples, those rookie autos, I don't mind owning extra of those. I did buy a couple of raw cards from my guy Vince, who I know he won these cards in a break, and I think he was planning on holding on to them. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the day, he was like, "If you're interested in them here," and he pulled them out. I'll hold them up. It's an Anthony Richardson Silver Prism. Here on YouTube, you can see it, and the Anthony Richardson oranged cracked ice. So both surfaces look nice, corners look nice, centering looks good from what I can see. So I'm definitely going to go through these cards during the week, make sure they're gradable, and send them off to PSA. I talked about the Sam Laporta Gold Wave actually my wife actually pulled last week. And I brought that with me. I threw it in a one touch. I threw it in the case. There were no sales on the card. One person, there's only 10 of them, right? One person's got one for sale, selling on eBay for $1,100. So I threw it in a one touch, and I threw it in there with $1,100 price. I matched that price on it. And I'm sitting there on Saturday late in the day, and somebody asked, a couple of people said, "Wow, that's really nice." They looked at the card. But I just started thinking, I mean, is that what the value is? Like, there's only one other person who has this card, right? And I'm sure in a way they probably just made up a price. They don't want to sell it too cheap. They don't know if they're, how they came up with that price. But it was just interesting. I mean, these are the things I think about, is like how quickly I decided that price looked good and I just went with it. That I said, "Well, I'm just going to match this guy's price." Like, I have no idea that card could be worth twice as much to the right person, right? Or not, right? Or it could be half of that. I mean, who really knows what that price is? Somebody else, another dealer came up to me this weekend and said, and they saw that card and they're like, "Oh, I just bought the Tank Bigsby of that card. Yeah, I paid $20 for it. Gold Wave Prism, paid $20 for it." Like, who how does somebody decide that that's the price for their card? $20 for a Gold Wave Prism. Even though the guy's a backup running back, he's still a rookie. It's a rookie card. So I'm like, what am I doing here? I didn't get any offers. People love the card. And a lot of people who listen to the podcast came up and said, "Oh, that's the card. That's the card." Like, they all knew the card. They saw the card. And I said, "You know what? The card looks really good." A few people that I trust. I mean, I know it's just slightly off center a little bit, but it's not too bad. I said, maybe I should be rethinking this. Maybe I should send this thing off to PSA and get it graded. Again, there's only 10 of them. So on something like that, I mean, the pop count's not going to be any higher than 10, right? On anything. So even if it comes back a 9, if there's a big Sam Laporta collector out there, I mean, who knows what it could be worth to him? And the other ones may grade poor, or people may not grade them at all. And the chances of having a big Sam Laporta collector at the Mohegan Sun show or next week at Foxwoods are probably pretty slim. Anybody buying that is going to fit, see if they could flip that or move it somewhere else. So I'm thinking maybe it may be better for me to, take the time, send it off for grading, and bring it to a bigger show, and possibly the national, or just put it online, an online auction to get more eyes on it. I mean, I'm not sure. I guess I'll have to see if this other one sells, because if the other one sells, the person who owns another one, they're probably going to dictate the comp if they do sell that, and if they take a best offer and what they take, they're going to dictate what that comp is on that card. So we'll see. I'll keep you updated, but these are the things I think to myself sometimes. Like, am I just so much on autopilot in the hobby that I'm like, oh, I got this great card. Let me look up a comp. Somebody's selling one at this. I'm going to put that price on mine. Like, you know, sometimes maybe we should think, and maybe I should think maybe a little bit more, or think it through a little bit more. But this may be this may be a better card just to get graded and, get more eyes on it and see what happens. Another buying opportunity, first thing Sunday morning, 10 o'clock, there was a line outside the door. So the door opens and most people come in and go to the left. Like, I could see where the crowd was going the other direction, away from me. And then there was this group of 4 guys that just all of a sudden just came wandering down the other way. They stopped at my table, started going through my discount boxes, and I asked one of them, "Hey, you guys selling any cars? Anything for sale?" Because they were all holding, cases. And the one, 2 of them were just like pointing to their friend. So he reached, and I'm going to say something else too, which is very interesting, because I talked about this probably season 2. Just talked about things that I do at a show, and one of the things was I never actually give people my case. Right, I'll open the case, take a few cards out, and I think it just leaves me in control what's going on. And I've noticed now over the last 2 shows, nobody's letting you in their cases anymore. Nobody's opening the case up and saying, yeah, go ahead and go through it, because I'm waiting. They're like, oh, it's okay, I put the case on there. I'm like, yeah, and they're facing it towards themselves, and they're going in and pulling things out. And this is what happened here. He reached into his case and he took out a few baseball cards, and I just said, nah, I really don't do baseball. I said, do you have any football? What else do you have in there? He's like, no, everything else, nothing else in there is for sale. And I said, okay. So he looked through the cards a little bit and he started to walk away, and his friend was talking to him, and he stopped and he walked back and he just reached into his pocket and he pulled out this Will Levis Select XRC Redemption. So I'll just hold that up there if you were on YouTube. So it is sealed. And I had good luck. I talked about, I bought the Anthony Richardson, one of those, down at the White Plains show, and I sent it for grading and it came back a 10. So the price on this was very good. I mean, the price on this right now is really not that high. So, and I like, though, everyone knows I like these XRCs. So made a deal, ended up buying it from him, and I'll probably send it out. I hope I can repeat. I hope it will grade, grade as well as the Richardson card did. Shout out to everyone who stopped by to say hello. I'm doing this week in and week out, talking to this camera. I see the numbers. I know how many people are listening, but it's nice when you go to shows and just people you don't know are coming up and saying, hey, I love the podcast. This is what I like about it. This is what I like about you. Please don't stop. Keep it going. Man, that just energizes me. It's so great not to be numbers anymore, but real people coming up and saying, yes, I listened to this. And I just want to tell everybody how much I appreciate everyone who stops me and says they love the podcast and they listen to it. Just really, really energizes me. And a huge thank you to everyone everyone who stopped by this weekend and just stops by or sees me at shows in general and just stops me. And please approach me. Very approachable. I love to talk to people. And if you see me anywhere, anytime, just come up, say hello, please. That's it. That's my wrap up of the Mohegan show. I was surprised. There was no one more surprised than me of how good this show was and what the sales were. Just blew all expectations, right out of the water. I was not expecting all that I did, and now it puts pressure on me this week to be able to, fill a table at the Card Vault show for with inventory. I've really got my work cut out for me. So stay tuned. Thursday, I will update you on where where I'm coming up with inventory to get my table full. But that's it. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe. And most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. Until next time, take care of yourselves and everyone around you.